Welcome to the mythical creatures.
All the dragons known to mankind are collected here, including various names, characteristics, and ideas about these creatures in different cultures. A dragon is a mythical creature, usually depicted as a large and powerful snake or other reptile, to which magical or spiritual properties are attributed. Dragons have a number of characteristics that are traditionally associated with them and are found in almost every culture in the world. The etymology of the word dragon goes back to the Greek drakon, genitive, drakantos, which translates as snake. See fish. The lexical root of this word is drak, or otherwise dirkstai, which means to see clearly, literally translated from Latin. The meaning of the word dragon means seer. Images of dragons often represent them as snakes or other reptiles that hatch from eggs and usually have a large scaly body. They are often depicted with large eyes, which is one of the main features defining the concept of dragon in local dialects and many cultures. In addition, dragons are often depicted with wings and the ability to spew flames. However, some of them may be wingless and look more like long snakes. The number of legs of dragons can also be different. They may not have 1, 2, or 4 paws. In the modern view, dragons are usually depicted as very large creatures, but some early descriptions of European dragons indicated their smaller size, comparable to the size of a bear or even a butterfly. Although dragon-like creatures are found in legends all over the world, they are portrayed differently in different cultures. Eastern cultures, including Chinese, most often depict dragons as benevolent creatures, while European legends often describe them as evil. Despite this, there are exceptions, and evil dragons are also present in Persian mythology and in other cultures. Dragons are especially popular in China, where figurines of these creatures are made and used at celebrations. Dragon figurines are also widespread in homes and have deep spiritual significance in various religious and cultural traditions around the world. This phenomenon is observed not only in the cultures of the indigenous peoples of the East and America, but also in a number of other societies where dragons are considered symbols of the main forces of nature and the universe. In many cultures, they are believed to have greater wisdom than humans, as well as magical or paranormal abilities, and are often associated with wells, rain, and rivers. In some cultures, dragons are even credited with the ability to speak a human language. Dragons are the favorite characters of fantasy, role-playing, and video game literature. In the infantry, the term dragoon refers to a soldier who skillfully maneuvers on horseback, but at the same time fights like an ordinary infantryman. This term comes from the name of the first infantry firearm, the dragon, a wide musket that, when fired, threw out a column of fire and was named after a mythical creature. In medieval symbolism, dragons were often associated with high treason, betrayal, as well as anger and envy, representing the embodiment of evil. Several dragon heads symbolized corruption, persecution, and heresy. However, they were also symbols of independence, leadership, and power. Many dragons were also associated with wisdom. The destruction of the dragon not only opened access to its treasures, but also emphasized the victory over the most cunning of all creatures. In some cultures, especially in Chinese and Himalayan, dragons were considered to bring good luck. In the work The Power of Myth, Joseph Campbell considers the dragon as a symbol of transcendence or a higher order, since it embodies the fusion of heaven and earth, combining the form of a snake, connection with the earthly, and the form of a bird, connection with the heavenly. Dragons combine both male and female qualities, as is known from the myths of the Aborigines, where the dragon plays the role of a mentor, preparing a child for adulthood and teaching how to overcome the difficulties of the surrounding world. Another contrast in the images of dragons is their ability to spew fire, despite the fact that they live in the ocean, thereby combining fire and water. Joseph Campbell's work says that dragons also symbolize the opposing elements of earth and sky, uniting the opposing forces of the cosmos. Another symbolic image of dragons is the Ouroboros, a snake devouring itself, which symbolizes eternity, natural cycles, and their continuous renewal. In Christianity, dragons are associated with snakes, emphasizing their connection with the ancient idea of snakes in Europe, and not with the widespread association with lizards or dinosaurs today. Medieval Christian interpretations of the Bible saw the devil in the form of a serpent who seduced Adam and Eve, which led to the dragon being associated with the concept of evil. Although such associations are rare in the Bible itself, with the exception of the Apocalypse of St. John the Theologian, demonic enemies of God, Christ, and Christians were often depicted as reptiles or chimeras. The book of Genesis, chapter 41, mentions the sea monster Leviathan, which bears a certain resemblance to dragons. The book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 3, describes a huge red creature with 7 heads, whose tail covers a third of the stars from heaven to earth, symbolizing the fall of angels. In most translations, the word dragon, draken, is used to refer to this creature in Greek. In the iconography we see images of some saints fighting dragons. This image is found in St. George in Egyptian and Coptic iconography, in St. George the Victorious on the coat of arms of Moscow, as well as in St. Mercurialis in Italy. There are also cases when St. Jalien Le Mans, St. Verin, St. Crescentinus and St. Leonard Norblack were depicted fighting dragons. However, it is believed that dragons were kind creatures before they, like humans, sinned and were banished from the Garden of Eden. In the context of Christianity, it is assumed that if dragons really existed, then they were created just like any other creatures. This idea is developed by Brian Davis in his book Dragons Among Us. According to the Chinese zodiac, people born in the year of the dragon have good health, are energetic and stubborn. They also possess qualities such as honesty, sensitivity, and bravery, and they can be considered reliable. The Chinese zodiac indicates that people born in the year of the dragon are usually the most eccentric among all those born under other signs. They do not seek profit, prefer to avoid unnecessary verbal expressions, but are often prone to kindness, which sometimes makes them vulnerable to manipulation by others. People born in the year of the dragon are usually compatible with those born in the year of the rat, snake, monkey, and rooster. In East Asia, dragons are usually considered symbols of good luck and prosperity, and sometimes they are even worshipped. In Asian culture, dragons are seen as mythical lords of weather, rain, and water, and are usually depicted as guardians of pearls. In China, as well as in Japan and Korea, the blue dragon is one of the 4 symbols of the Chinese constellation symbolizing spring. Chinese dragons are often depicted holding a large pearl in their paws, although some claim that it is actually a dragon egg. It is believed that dragons mostly live underwater, and sometimes rice is sacrificed to them. Unlike European dragons, Chinese dragons are not depicted with wings, as they are believed to be able to fly with magic. The yellow dragon, Huanglong, with 5 claws on each paw symbolizes the change of seasons, the element of the earth, which is a kind of Chinese 5th element, and the center. It also symbolizes imperial power in China, reflecting the power of all Chinese. The Chinese often refer to themselves as descendants of the dragon, which is an expression of ethnic identity. The dragon is also depicted on coins in Bhutan. The coin is called Druk Gyalpo, or Dragon King. In Vietnam, the dragon is the most important and sacred symbol. According to the ancient myth of the creation of mankind kin, all Vietnamese are considered descendants of dragons. According to legend, the eldest of the 100 sons of the dragon founded the first dynasty. The image of a naga, a deity taking the form of a snake, is often found in Buddhism and its traditions. Although technically a naga is not a dragon, it is often depicted in this form. The term has various meanings and can refer to a tribe of people known as nagas, as well as elephants or common snakes. In a mythological context, a naga is a deity taking the form of a snake with 1 or more heads. Sometimes, in images of the Buddha, he is depicted sitting on a coiled snake with several heads that crawl over his body. This is Mukalinda, the naga who protects the Buddha during his training. Those who are not familiar with the history of the Buddha can only see the head of Makalinda and mistake him for a dragon, and not for a deity in the form of a snake. Stair railings in Buddhist temples are often made in the shape of a naga's body, with the head at the base of the railing. In Thailand, the naga head, depicted in a more unusual form, often adorns the corners of the roofs of houses, and the naga body adorns the pediments, symbolizing the protection of the house. In Hindu mythology, Manasa and Vasuki are creatures similar to snakes or dragons. Indra, the god of storms in Indian mythology, defeated Vritra, a huge serpent who lived on a mountain. Sometimes, in images of the Buddha, he is depicted sitting on a coiled snake with several heads that crawl over his body. This is Mukalinda, the naga who protects the Buddha during his training. Those who are not familiar with the story of the Buddha can only see the head of Makalinda and mistake him for a dragon, and not for a deity in the form of a snake. Stair railings in Buddhist temples are often created in the shape of a naga's body, with the head at the base of the railing. In Thailand, the naga's head, depicted in a more unusual form, often adorns the corners of the roofs of houses, and the Naga's body adorns the pediments, symbolizing the protection of the house. The Vietnamese dragon is a mixed image of a crocodile, snake, lizard, and bird. Historically, Vietnamese people lived near rivers and had great reverence for crocodiles, which they called Giao Long. This species is the original image of the Vietnamese dragon. Subsequently, many varieties of dragons appeared in architecture, fine arts, literature, and the consciousness of the Vietnamese. In Greek mythology, legends abound about snakes or dragons, which often stand guard over some precious treasure. According to one legend, the first rulers of Athens were half man, half snake. The dragon Ladon, for example, guarded the golden apples of the sun belonging to the Hesperides. Another serpent dragon guarded the golden fleece, trying to prevent it from being stolen by Jason and the Argonauts. Similarly, Piscia and Python, a pair of snakes, guarded the temple of Gaia and her oracle until the Delphic oracle was captured by Apollo, who decorated his winged caduceus with the skins of these snakes, given to him by Hermes. It is believed that Greek myths, including the stories of Hercules, Ladon, and others, have their roots in the older myths from Canaan, where the Israeli god Yahweh fought Leviathan. These stories also have their parallels in even more ancient legends about the Hittites or Hurrians, which talk about a fight with the dragon Eluniakas, who lives in the sea. In the mythology of the Australian Aborigines, the rainbow snake was the main character of myths spread in various regions of the country. It is known by various names, occurring both in the southwest, in the Wagala area, and in the north in the Ganba deserts, as well as in the south, in the Wannembe area. The rainbow snake, associated with lakes and rivers, was considered an object of reverence and fear. The origins of the concept of dragon remain a mystery to this day, since there is no universal scientific theory or confirmation of the existence of dragons in the present or the past. However, the fact remains that the images of dragons are present in the mythologies of different cultures that had no contact with each other. This may indicate a common understanding of the being, perhaps due to common psychological inclinations in various groups of humanity. Some researchers believe that dragons may have had real prototypes, such as dinosaurs or other ancient reptiles. However, there is no concrete evidence in favor of this hypothesis, only assumptions studied in the framework of cryptozoology, where unknown or mythical animals are studied. For example, the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot. According to this hypothesis, in the past there could have been giant lizards, like Megalania, which were descendants of dinosaurs. Many consider these hypotheses to be pseudoscience or myth. The first dinosaur fossils found were once referred to as dragon bones. This discovery was made around 300 BC in Sichuan province in China and was named Chanchio. It is possible that this discovery served as the basis for the legends of flying monsters or strengthened faith in them. Herodotus, known as the father of history, visited Judea in 450 BC and mentioned dragons kept in cages in neighboring Arabia. Next to Petra in Jordan, he showed curiosity and explored these places, where he found many skeletons of snakes and heard many stories about flying snakes flying from Arabia to Egypt, but fighting with ibises. According to Marco Polo's notes, during his journey through Anatolia to Persia, he encountered real live flying dragons that attacked his caravan in the desert. He described these dragons as very intimidating creatures that almost killed him in the attack. However, this story was not written down by Polo immediately, but later, when he was already in prison, and doubts arise about the authenticity of his story. Polo was also the first Western traveler to describe the dragon bones in China. These dragon bones turned out to be fossils, probably similar to those described in Chanchio's work, or belonging to other animals. It is also assumed, according to the hypothesis of proponents of the theory of catastrophes, that comets and the traces they leave in the sky could serve as the beginning of legends about fiery snakes in the sky. In Old English, comets were sometimes called firing draken, which can be translated as flaming dragons. Volcanic eruptions may also have helped to strengthen the belief in the existence of dragons, although eruptions in European and Asian countries were rare. Similar to European dragons, but with multiple heads, they emit flames and leave traces of fire behind them during flight. In the culture of the Slavs and related peoples, dragons are often associated with evil. They are often called by Turkic names such as Xylan, reflecting the long-standing conflicts between Slavs and Turks. The Tatar dragon Zylant is depicted as a winged snake and is a symbol of Kazan. In general, the Zylant is a Russian interpretation of the Tatar dragon, that is, a snake. The Siberian dragon Yulbagin has features similar to European, Turkic, and Slavic dragons. Chuvash dragons, including Varasaline, are part of the pre-Islamic mythology of this republic. Scandinavian and Germanic dragons, such as Lindworm, are depicted as large snakes with 2 legs. Although in fact they are closer to winged dragons, it was believed that they fed on cattle and were associated with the sea. But seeing Lindworm was considered an auspicious sign. Another Scandinavian dragon, Fafnir, who was killed by Sigurd, was actually a giant snake called worm in ancient Norwegian. He didn't have the ability to fly or breathe fire. However, the dragon killed by Beowulf was a classic European dragon capable of flying and breathing fire. The Welsh dragon, known as Ydraig Gach, is represented on the Welsh national flag and is a traditional symbol of Wales. It is described as a large snake that lives in swamps, often attacking herds of sheep and pigs. However, several shepherds were able to finish him off quickly by going hunting for him. Hungarian dragons, known as Sarkanyak and Sarkanikigio, are giant winged snakes. Sarkany is a grown-up pet who often uses Garabansiasak, a special kind of magic. Sarkanikigio is able to control storms and cause bad weather. These dragons can also take on human form, often being giants with multiple heads. Their strength is in their heads, and if they lose their heads, they become weaker. The Romanian dragon, known as Balor, strongly resembles the Slavic snake. It is large, has many heads. In Austrian mythology, there are dragons called Quelebra. These are giant winged snakes that live in caves. They guard the treasures and kidnap the nymphs known as Hannes. Quelebras can live for many centuries, and when they get old, they begin to use their wings to fly. Their breath is poisonous and they often hunt cattle for food. The name Quelebra comes from the Latin word colubra, meaning snake. Basque dragons such as Haransuj and Sugar in Basque folklore symbolize powerful creatures that have taken the form of dragons. According to legend, Saint Michael descended from heaven to fight Haransuj, but only after receiving a blessing from God. Mikhail was scared of this creature. One of the gods of Basque mythology, also known as Maju, was often associated with the image of a snake, although it could take other forms. The Indonesian dragon, known as Naga or Nogo, is a mythical creature in Indonesian mythology that penetrates almost all the islands of this country, especially those that are influenced by Indian culture, similar to its Indian roots. The Indonesian Naga is seen as a divine being in nature, benevolent and often associated with sacred mountains, forests, or certain parts of the sea. In various parts of Indonesia, the dragon or Naga is depicted as a huge snake with a golden crown on its head. There is a belief among some peoples of Indonesia that Nagas still live on undiscovered mountains, lakes, and active volcanoes. On the islands of Java and Bali, dragons are presented as ideal creatures sent by the gods to maintain the well-being and prosperity of people. Some locals claim to have seen this legendary creature and perceived it as a favorable sign. However, if the dragon communicated with them, it was considered a warning of trouble or failure. The Chinese dragon, known as Long, is a light creature with a long, serpentine body that combines various features of other animals. Most of them, although not all, they don't have wings. This creature has 4 claws on each paw, 5 on the imperial emblem. They are perceived as lords of weather and water, as well as symbols of power. They can hold dragon eggs in their paws, although, according to some sources, it may be pearls. The Japanese dragon, called Ryu, resembles Chinese and Korean dragons, but has 3 claws instead of 4. They, with the exception of some, are usually friendly and can grant wishes. They are rare in Japanese mythology. The Vietnamese dragon, known as Longo Balor, has a lot in common with the Slavic snake. He is huge and has a lot of heads. Austrian dragons such as Quelebra have bodies curved like 12 waves, symbolizing the 12 months of the year. They are able to influence the weather and are responsible for the harvest. Horns are placed on their backs, and their heads are decorated with a long mane and beard. They have large eyes, a crest on their nose, but no horns. Their mouth is always open, with a long, thin tongue, and they hold a jewel in their mouth, symbolizing humanity. nobility, and knowledge. The Korean dragon, known as Yong, is essentially similar to the Chinese Liang. Like Liang, Yong and other Korean dragons have power over water and weather. Kyo is a hornless ocean dragon, sometimes known as a sea snake. Regarding Indian dragons such as Vyali, Vyali, and Naga, there is a dispute as to whether Vyali is a real dragon. It was discovered in ancient temples dedicated to the goddess Parvati. The Nagas, on the other hand, are the main dragons of Indian and Hindu mythology. They are magical snakes that live in the water, and their king is crowned with a golden crown. The Nagas are closely associated with the Buddha, especially with the god Vishnu and his incarnations, Dasavataras. In one of the myths, Krishna, as a baby, fought with a Naga who held the water of the lake. The Central American dragon, known as Amphitrite, is a winged deity who takes the form of a snake. He was credited with the ability to transmit knowledge to mankind, but sometimes he was also perceived as a symbol of death and rebirth. Amaru is a dragon, sometimes called a snake, in the Inca culture. The last Inca emperor, Tupac Amaru, had a name that translated means dragon of God. The Brazilian dragon, known as Boitada, is a creature resembling a dragon, sometimes a snake, in Brazilian culture. The Chilean dragons Cacavilu and Tintinvalu are serpent-shaped dragons originating from the Chilean island of Chiloé. Cacavilu was a sea god, while Tintinvalu was a land god. The African dragon, known as Amphisbaena, may have first appeared in North Africa, and then myths about it spread to Greece. Amphisbaena was a two-headed dragon, with one head in front and the other at the end of its tail. The front head held the tail, or neck, depending on the circumstances, in its mouth, thus forming a wheel from its body that allowed it to roll. Creatures similar to dragons. Basilisk. The basilisk is supposedly the result of a rooster and a snake crossing. His appearance resembles a lizard or a snake, and he is able to kill with his gaze, voice, or even touch the victim. Like a jellyfish, a basilisk can die if it sees itself in a mirror. Leviathan. In Jewish mythology, Leviathan is depicted as a huge creature with huge teeth. Modern interpretations often associated with a crocodile, but in the Bible Leviathan is described as a creature capable of breathing fire, flying and overcoming spears or harpoons. It can crawl along vertical walls and has teeth located very close to each other. Leviathan is able to swallow a person whole, which distinguishes it from a crocodile. For a long time, the term Leviathan has been used to refer to any large sea creature, and in modern Hebrew it simply means a whale. Leviathan is more similar to a snake and lives in water. The winged dragon. This is the creature that most resembles an ordinary dragon compared to all the others listed here. A winged dragon is a snake with wings, usually with 2 legs or no legs at all. His images are often found in heraldry, and he differs significantly from 4-legged dragons. Snake. It comes from Slavic mythology and often takes the form of a human. The snake is able to fly and breathe fire. Cockatrice. It is a bird-like reptile, often confused with a basilisk. In Gerald Darrell's book, they attempt to destroy all the dragons by stealing their last eggs. Quetzal. This is a creature from Central America or Mexico, depicted as a snake with feathers and scales. He was worshipped by the Toltecs and Aztecs, also known as the feathered serpent. Famous dragons. Aji de Haka, a 3-headed demon often described as resembling a dragon, is part of Zoroastrian mythology. Ugaritic mythology describes Latin, a 7-headed sea snake. In Greek mythology, Hydra is a water snake with many heads and magical abilities. After Hercules cut off one head, 2 more grew in its place. Hydra was defeated by Hercules. Smokewalski is a Polish dragon that terrorized the hills around Krakow in the Middle Ages. Ydrea Gach, the symbol of Wales, originally represented as the red dragon from the Mabinogion, the story of Lud and Llywelys. Nidhogg, a dragon from Norse mythology, was believed to inhabit the darkest corners of the underworld, waiting for Ragnarok to be released to bring destruction to the world. Orochi, an 8-headed snake, was killed by Susanoo in Japanese mythology. The dragon is also a symbol of Ljubljana, Slovenia. The city has a dragon bridge decorated with 4 images of dragons. The local basketball team is known as the Green Dragons, and there is also a dragon depicted on the city car license plates. This dragon is one of the most famous in the UK, and there are many legends around it. According to illustrator Todd Lockwood, dragons have a lot in common with cats in their anatomy and character, but not with snakes or lizards. He believes that dragons must have developed muscles to fly and be intelligent beings. Similarly, the main character in the series of books How to Train a Dragon by the British children's writer Cressida Cowell is presented as a dragon with the habits of a cat, which is also reflected in the film adaptations of the books. Dragons in the world of fantasy and video games. Alduin from Skyrim was nicknamed the World Eater according to Nordic legends, which describe him as a terrible firestorm that destroyed the previous world so that the current era could begin. For the Nords, he is the god of time, the creator and harbinger of the apocalypse. Although he is not the head of the pantheon of Northerners, but rather its dark and gloomy source. Galakrond is a giant proto-dragon, the progenitor of the entire dragon family in the world of Azeroth from the game Warcraft, who in the past slept and terrorized his children. His threat was countered by 5 proto-dragons of various colors, united in future aspects. It is said that the Titans created aspects, but this is just a myth that hides the truth about Galakrond for most dragons. In addition to the World of Warcraft called Cataclysm, released in 2010, there were radical changes. The dragon Deathwing brought chaos to the entire world of Azeroth. This destruction affected many areas and radically changed the surrounding landscape. Deathwing became the final boss of this expansion, presenting a fierce opponent for the players. Over time, you can defeat him again, traveling on the Dragon Mount, so as not to forget who won the victory. And Calagon was the first winged dragon of Middle-earth, the ancestor of all winged fire-breathing dragons. The winged dragons became Morgotha's last reserve in the War of Wrath, thanks to their attack. For the first time, the Dark Lord managed not only to stop, but also to push back Valinor's troops advancing on Thangorodrim. Valyrian, also known as the Black Terror, was a dragon belonging to Aegon the Conqueror during the War of Conquest. Not only was this dragon the largest and oldest among the Targaryen dragons, but it was also considered the most powerful in all of Westeros. Its size was so great that its shadow could envelop an entire city. Villentretenmer, also known as Borch the Three Jackdaws, is one of the most powerful dragons in the world described in Sapkowski's stories about The Witcher. It is unique in that it represents a golden dragon capable of taking the form of a human or any other creature. Golden dragons are considered the rarest and most legendary. Their scales have a golden hue. His daughter, Sezentessus, inherits his abilities, but she is not a pure-blooded golden dragon and can only take the form of a dragon or a human. The Ukrainian armored belly is the most massive and powerful dragon in the world of Harry Potter. It weighs up to 6 tons, and although its flight is far from easy and maneuverable, it is capable of destroying an entire house with its weight. The scales are gray with a metallic sheen, the eyes are red, and the claws are long and dangerous. The magical magistrate of Ukraine has been closely monitoring these dragons since 1799, when one of them attacked a sailboat in the Black Sea. The ancient dragon is the largest and most powerful dragon in Drangleic. In fact, he is not a true dragon, but still has dragon characteristics. Perhaps it was created by Aldea from the soul of a giant, since after its destruction, only the soul of this giant can be obtained. The undead dragon is not only the most powerful, but also the most stable of all the dragons in the Gothic world. Almost immortal, he dwells in his own chambers on the island of Erderat and is the supreme ruler of all undead, including seekers and orcs. The dragon is the wife of the donkey who guarded Fiona's tower in Shrek, appearing for the first time while defending an abandoned castle that serves as a dungeon for Princess Fiona. She probably lived in this place for a long time, since the tower is filled with treasures and the remains of many unsuccessful knights who tried to free Fiona. It is assumed that she inflicted numerous blows with her fire on everyone who dared to confront her. In the universe of the game Heroes of Might and Magic, starting with the 5th part, dragons cease to be just huge winged reptiles, flaming erupting. They began to be considered as the original deities and the embodiment of magic. The inhabitants of Ashen are not only aware of the existence of dragons, but also put them on a pedestal, honoring and even trembling before them. Stories about dragons are carried over from generation to generation, inspiring a variety of artificial works, from literature to movies and video games. In modern culture, dragons remain one of the most exciting and popular fantasy elements.
Thanks for watching. It will be nice to see you again in the world of mythical creatures.